So good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Iowa City Foreign Relations Council program on the topic of MSF, or Doctors Without Borders. We are privileged enough to have Dr. Michael Mooney here with us today to talk about his experience. And program is called Surgical Missions or Tales from the Field. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Sophia Sapgal, and I'm an Iowa City Foreign Relations Council intern, and I'm going to be your host today. This year marks our 40th anniversary. We are celebrating our supporters, our legacy in the community, and the bright future ahead of us on international focused programming in Iowa City. We are deeply grateful for the long-standing support from our community, many of who are here with us today. Your help has allowed us and our organization to grow for 40 years, hosting speaker programs with experts joining us in person and online from all across the world. As a small nonprofit, we exist because of the generosity of individuals like you. We also extend our heartfelt thanks to those joining us virtually. Thank you so much. Or watching the program broadcast online or on City Channel 4. You are an integral part of our broad, interconnected community. I hope all of you will consider making a financial contribution today by scanning one of your QR codes in the room or visiting our website. These free programs are only possible because of your support. And finally, thank you all so much for being sponsors and community partners for their support in this program. In particular, today, we recognize the Carver College of Medicine's Office of Health Parity for their partnership and for the refreshments provided today. Before we begin, we also want to extend the Native American Land Acknowledgement. Iowa City Foreign Relations Council has adopted the Native American Land Acknowledgement prepared for the City of Iowa City's Ad Hoc Truth and Reconciliation Commission and Human Rights Commission. Iowa City Foreign Relations Council recognizes that our home community of Iowa City now occupies the homelands of Native American nations to whom we owe our commitment and dedication. The full text of ICFRC's acknowledgement is on our website at iowacity.foreignrelationscouncil.org. Now to turn to Dr. Michael Mooney. Thank you so much, and you can now begin your presentation.
Great. Good morning. Actually, it's good morning in Portland, Oregon. Good afternoon to you guys. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you great. Thank you.
Okay, great. So thanks for allowing me to come. This is a subject that I'm passionate about, and I appreciate the opportunity to share it when I get the chance. So kind of our goal today was to talk about surgical missions. I'm a surgeon, have been on 6 missions with MSF over the past 16 years, and basically talking about, what that's all about. On the very bottom of this slide, it talks about NPR note. I'm a surgeon, and I'm talking about surgical things, and so there are some pictures that are somewhat graphic, not horribly graphic to me, but just to let you know, there will be pictures that show people that have been injured and kind of what we're doing to take care of them. So just a little background about me to start with. I was raised as an Army brat, lived all over the world, went to high school in Germany, traveled all over Europe. Then I did my medical education through the Army and traveled quite extensively with that. And I thought I was a pretty worldly guy, pretty savvy traveler, until I got sent to Haiti in my latter part of being in the Army. And it was mind-blowing how naive I was about the situation in the world. So this slide I stole off the internet because I didn't have any of my own slides of this kind of picture. But basically, it's what you see when you drive through the slums of Haiti, of Port-au-Prince. And you see these shacks. People live in these things. There's no running water, no electricity, no heating, air conditioning. Basically, it's an area of some privacy where you can change your clothes. But there's running sewage, garbage everywhere. And it's just devastatingly horrible environment. So kind of it gave me a pause there about what was going on in the world and really made me rethink what I thought of the world. And this is a picture that I think many of us recognize on the left, this Earthrise picture from an early Apollo mission. And so we all live on this one planet. It's the only place we know there are humans. And we're all the same on this planet. We all need the same things. We all desire the same things, but we are all just radically different on this planet. And it has to do with where we're born. I mean, I think when I was a kid, I wanted to be born taller, stronger, faster, a variety of things. And I didn't get any choice in this. I was born in the United States. I have a immense number of opportunities that have been presented to me, but half the world live in a completely different circumstance where they are not afforded the same opportunity. So this picture on the right shows an internment camp in Sri Lanka. This was my second surgical mission, and it was at the end of the Tamil Tiger, basically the insurrection with the Tamil people in Sri Lanka when they were conquered and vanquished. They took the 300,000 remaining people that were alive after a year or so of horrible conflict and put them in this internment camp. And who was there? It wasn't the healthy young men and boys. It was older people and women. They were the people that survived this. And they put them in this camp and they're behind barbed wire and they did not have the choice to travel here or there. And kind of this is one of the reasons that Doctors Without Borders goes to places it goes to, is because these things exist. So when I was getting out of the Army after this experience in Haiti, I really pondered on this for quite some time about what share of the world's issues was I responsible for. And there are a lot of people that write about this, philosophers and so on and so forth. And the answer that works for me is, or one answer is, each person's responsible for their share. And this is a good and a bad thing. It doesn't tell you exactly what to do. It basically leaves it up to you, which is hard. So when I got out of the Army, the first thing I decided I wanted to do, I wanted to move me and my family to Haiti. And so this is the picture of my family at the time that I finished my military obligation. This is my wife and my 3 kids. These people are my treasures in life. And I wanted to take them and move them full-time to Haiti. And that we actually, my wife and I went there and visited there for a couple of weeks, and I worked there. And it was way too dangerous at the time. And we decided not to do this. So my thing has become Doctors Without Borders. And this is a plus minus thing too. This is a statement from my wife and my kids about my activities with Doctors Without Borders. And they said, we can't be more proud of you, but we absolutely hate you doing this, primarily because I'm gone a lot and it's dangerous. So, but they support it. So why did I pick Doctors Without Borders? So first of all, Doctors Without Borders, it talks about, that's the title of Doctors Without Borders. There's many more people that work for Doctors Without Borders than doctors. And so it should be kind of people without borders that care for people without borders. But why, for me, the main things is it's independent, impartial, neutral, and no religious affiliation. The key is caring for people, not selling them something. And who goes on these things? If you look at it, first of all, when I go on mission trips, inevitably every time I get asked by my peer group or people I know, and they say, oh, where are you going this time? And are you bringing your wife? These are not vacation trips. Doctors Without Borders goes to places where they have need, and usually they're conflict, post-conflict areas. They're usually pretty dangerous. You don't bring your family. It's not a vacation. When you go on these things, if you imagine taking a hospital that you go to and moving that hospital to a foreign country, it requires a lot of stuff, a lot of people, and a lot of care providers. And doctors, or actually surgeons, are low on the list. There are very few surgeons that actually go. So who goes on these trips in terms of demographics? People go on these things because primarily they're doing their share. They have some sort of need to do something for the world's problems. But also people that go on these things like it. I like it. I like the challenge. I like meeting people. I like going on these things. And I've gone again and again because it gives me some positive feedback. There's a lot of people in their 20s, 30s, gets lower as you get older, but there are people in their 80s that are working with Doctors Without Borders, and they're from all over the world. I've met people from everywhere. Each mission has kind of a designated spoken language that's the main language. And so most of the ones I've gone in have been primarily English speaking. I've gone on one mission that was only French speaking, which was a little challenging for me because I don't speak much French. But the main language that's spoken is not a language like English or French. It's people skills. And so people that go in these things, usually they like people, they like working with people, they're good in stressful situations, and touching people, smiling at people, being warm is really key to being successful in these things. Why is Doctors Without Borders needed? If you look at this long list of things that they do and provide support for, conflict is kind of on the bottom. And so basically all sorts of things. if you go into the Doctors Without Borders office, they have a sign up and they say, where do we go? We go where the need is. Most of the places they go, they are in hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of places in the world right now. South America is big, and then all over Europe and Africa. And these are the 6 places I've been. Pretty much most of mine have been conflict, post-conflict, because that's where you need a lot of surgical care. So jumping into the tales of the mission, this is a picture from the plane. On the first mission I went was to a place called Tacoma, Sudan. It was in the middle of the whole Darfur conflict. It was in 2006. We were right on the border of North and South Sudan. It took hours of flying to get to where we were set up. And if you look at this shows you what the terrain is for hours and hours and hours. No cities, no major roads, no major anything. But if you actually look down on the right, kind of where these look like linear white things are, those are paths. And there are people that live down there in a super harsh, difficult environment. And we were there primarily for conflict, but also for a community or a large area of excluded healthcare access. This is what you see when you went to our base. This is a bunch of Land Rovers out in front. There's some stuff in the back that's the top of huts that we worked in, and also tents. And the first thing that happens when you go on any of these trips, which kind of drives you crazy, but the first thing is they give you a safety briefing when you get there, because the context is pretty much always conflict, post-conflict, and they want to make sure that you're safe and know what to do. It's hard to do that because you've been traveling for 3 or 4 days, getting there literally, and you're jet lagged and you're exhausted. You just want to go to sleep, but they sit you down and they tell you what's going on. How do you stay safe in these places? There's no arms, there's no armed guards. Usually there's some sort of rickety fence that's around your enclosure that you're working in, primarily to keep people's livestock out of your base. The biggest thing that people talk about is you wear a bulletproof t-shirt. So people have seen people with Doctors Without Borders. The vest I'm wearing here shows the logo. And I think the branding thing is important, that all the time you want to be identifiable as with Doctors Without Borders. And then usually every mission has at least one person who their full-time job is working with all of the parties in the community. In North Sudan, we work with North Sudan and South Sudan, that sort of thing, with the mayors, with the local people. And I think another thing that helps with safety is that we provide medical care. When I was in Haiti, we were in the middle of the slums in Haiti, and there was active battle going on. This was about 2 years ago, all the time. But we were allowed transit in and out of the hospital every day, primarily, I think, because we took care of all parties that were injured and they needed us. And so regardless of what you do to try and mitigate risk, there's no zero risk scenario. They're dangerous places and people do get hurt. This is showing a picture of a mission I was on in Cameroon, where there's a civil war going on still. And the house that we stayed in was right in the middle of the action. And the picture on the left shows me sitting on the floor with 2 other people. We're sitting on the floor because we were there from the hospital eating lunch, and a battle took off around us. And it went on for an hour and a half, and we're sitting in the middle of the house, staying low behind, heavy walls to try and prevent getting injured. And so in the middle of this, I was actually talking to my wife when this started, and she said, "What's that?" And it was grenades and high-powered weapons going off for an hour and a half. And she says, "Gunfire, yeah, it is, but that's these are things that happen." So what's the job when you go on this? When I'm in Portland, I'm a general surgeon. If you came in and you had appendicitis or cholecystitis or a hernia or you had colon cancer, that's what I do here. In these contexts abroad, I'm the surgeon. I'm the thoracic surgeon. I'm the gynecologist. I'm the pediatric surgeon. I'm the plastic surgeon. And I didn't grow up knowing how to do all these things, but I did grow up with a skill set that can let me do anything. And so when you go into these contexts over time, you get better and better at it. There's some training that's provided ahead of time, but basically sitting down and reading about things can get you through an awful lot of things. And call people. Sometimes the local people help you because they know what you do, but it's a big job. What's the real job, though? It's taking care of people. So this is the first mission I was on, this Aquem, and we would have up to 1,000 people a day that came to our sick call time. And they came from all over for hundreds of miles of catchment area. A lot of people walk for days to get there. And this is who we took care of. I didn't take care of 1,000 surgical patients a day, but a few every day. I was asked to try and give some really important takeaway things. If you ever go on a mission, what you need to do. So this is about taking a headlight. All of these, in the United States, we take for granted, you turn on the lights, they come on, you turn on the water, you got water, all these things. These missions have none of these things. Most of them, we have a generator. MSF is moving more and more towards using solar, but the power goes off all the time. And so this is showing on the left our triage hut, which is super dark. And then you're trying to see people and see what's going on. Bring a headlight, which was probably the most important piece of equipment that I had, was being able to see. And so this is talking about simple mission math. What happens? Why do people have problems there? Why are they injured? This is showing kids, wherever we go, people are interested in us because we're different and we're from different places. They want to meet us and talk to us. And so it's kind of super cool that you meet kids, you meet families, all sorts of people, and want to show you what they're doing. And anyway, these guys were walking around, but it shows you the kids don't have shoes on. They're pretty dirty if you look at them because they're running around in the dirt. And so you have these kids running around in dirt. And how do people clean there? The top photo is a little dark. I took it in the morning, but there are people that are bathing in puddles. And the puddles aren't just used for people for bathing. The cows come by and jump in them, the dogs, they're pretty dirty things, but people can kind of wash the dirt off. But the slide below, the two young gals, they're carrying water. There was a well in the village that I was working in, and it was the only well for probably 50, 100 miles around. And so people would come with little plastic jugs and get clean water, and they could take that back to their homes, but you can only take so much. And most of us are drinking and cooking and not for cleaning. And it was just tough to stay clean. And so what happens when you get dirt and you can't clean it very well, you get a lot of skin infections and abscesses and other sorts of things. So the baby on the left had an ear abscess that we drained, and the baby on the right had several abscesses that we drained. And I had kids that had 12 abscesses that we drained and some worse infections. But the thing about it, I talked about when I started out, I showed the picture of my wife and my 3 kids who are my treasures. One thing that we do share on this planet is everybody has the same currency of wealth. That's the top thing, and it's our people. It's our kids, our wives, our parents. And look at this mom looking at her baby, and she just loves that baby. And it's truly an honor and a joy to share that they trust us to share their treasures with us. And that's one of the big drivers to me coming back again and again. Here's another thing that happens. So people in that community lived in these little huts called tukels, and it's rough. There's the remnants of crops in the front. They have to keep up the animals. They have to collect water. They have to collect wood. I mean, it's just a really rough day-to-day existence. And so you have these kids running around, and oftentimes the mom can't find them, and they're playing around the fire and they'll fall in. So this is a baby that we saw there who fell backwards into a fire and burned himself. And fortunately for this kid, he was able to heal up with just wound care, dressing changes over several days to several weeks, and he healed up and he left. But look at the mom on the right. These people take as good care and care as much about their babies as we do. They just have a much, much more difficult environment to do so. But she's holding her baby's hand and, again, trusting us to help out with that. So some don't heal up with wound care. Some need skin grafting. This is a gal who's 17, different mission, had a cooking fire on her left leg, needed a skin graft. It had been neglected for months, and it was just festering and a mess. And she was so ecstatic that she got grafted and fixed. And it was just, that's heartwarming. It drives you to do more of this. On the other end of it, there's kids that come in, they get burns that we can't fix. This is a 6-year-old girl, beautiful girl, who fell in a fire, got caught in a fire in her tukel and couldn't get out, and had a 50% burn. And for a variety of reasons, we couldn't fix her. And I think everybody in the hospital was heartbroken about this. And she actually hated us. It was so painful. It was just so emotionally wrenching, day in and day out, taking care of her. But she went home and she died. So when I need flour in my house, I go down in the basement and I pick up a bag of flour that we bought and we make whatever. When people need flour here, they have to grind up the grain themselves. And so this is this gal's food processor. It's a little a stump that was hollowed out, and she has a big stick, and she pounds the grain into flour. And I actually tried this. This is me on the right. It's hard. It's hard because the big stick is very heavy, and trying to get it down in the hole each time. And you're doing this manual labor day in and day out, and people get injured. And so this is just a representative sample of probably 5 or 6 times this many hand injuries I saw in the 1 month I was there. Just all sorts of things that people are doing that their hands get injured. So huge. Foot injuries are common because why? People are walking everywhere in these really harsh environments. And these kids on the right are fishing. They wanted me to go with them. I said no, no. But anyway, this is a kid who came in, who his parents brought him 3 days walking to get to us. And he got bit by a snake. And the snake up on the right side is a green mamba, which is a snake that's there and just in the environment. And by the time he got to us, he was nearly dead. He was so sick from infection. And so the only thing we could do for him was amputate the dead foot. And so the guy on the right side is making a pair of crutches for him. And the kid actually did well. We had the muddy area that was in front of our base was where the local people played soccer. And so pretty much every night they had a soccer game out there. And they had a kid there who was probably 16 who had had a previous amputation, who was faster than all the other kids. He would run with one leg and a pole that he held in a hand. And he had a really great pivot, and he could kick the ball like crazy and looked like he was doing fine. So people adapt. But the big thing with this kid was saving his life. When I was growing up, my dad used to tell me and my siblings this when we went out of the house. He said, "Don't put any beans up your nose." And I thought that was the funniest thing. Like, who would put beans up their nose? That's such a silly thing. Well, going on missions, I have not been on a mission where I didn't see kids that put something up their nose. Beans, rocks, marbles, all sorts of things. Well, the first time I saw this there, I had a kid come in with this bean up his nose. And I'm like, how are we going to get this out of there? Like, I don't know. So what you do is you sit down. This picture in the middle is a book from a foreign surgery book by a guy named Maurice King, which is this big paperback thing that lists all sorts of things. So I pull out my book, say, hang on for a minute, pull out my book and I read about it. And they say, oh, you can make this little device out of a paper clip and take beans out of the nose. And pretty much every mission I've gone to since, I do this with a paper clip there. And the people are always amazed that this works so well, but it does work great. You see a lot of gunshot wounds. Most of the people with gunshot wounds, it's high-powered weapons like Kalashnikovs. Most people that get shot in the chest or the abdomen with a Kalashnikov, especially if it's close by, do not survive it, especially in this context. Most of the people I see with high-powered weapon injuries, it's orthopedic trauma. Like they get hit in the leg and you get an open, dirty fracture, which requires a lot of care to get it better, but they don't die. So these are the people I see. This is showing a picture of just a representative person. I've seen hundreds and hundreds of these. This is a guy who was on patrol with other people in Sudan, and he got shot in the leg, and it's his left lower leg, and you can see the leg is very dirty, and it's kind of blown open, and there's a fracture, and yeah, it's just the first thing you do is you can't put him in a cast because you just wrap up dirty, messy infection, and you need to be able to get to it every day. So you put them in something called an external fixator, which is this little, if you look at the picture, second one down from the left, where it's little plastic pipes and bolts, and you basically bolt everything together and you leave the wound open so you can take care of it. So the right upper picture shows the wound getting better. It's nice and pink. And then the right lower picture shows us after we put a skin graft on it. And this guy was probably ready to go. I don't recall exactly, but in a couple of weeks, usually it takes a couple of months for the fracture to heal, but then he should be able to walk on this again. We did see occasional weird stories. This is a kid who came into our ER in Cameroon with abdominal pain. He was at home and he was studying in his room, and he developed just acute onset of abdominal pain. And so he came into our ER, and the ER called me and they said, we think he has appendicitis. And so I go and see this guy, and it's like, he has an abdominal exam that shows that there's something really bad wrong in there and you need to operate on him, but I didn't know what it was. So we took him to the operating room, and what we found, we do what's called an exploration. We found that he had 3 holes in his intestines. And it's like, couldn't find what it was from. And so we washed it out, we fixed the holes. And in the process of washing it out, a lot of fluid collects in the pelvis. So you go in, you scoop all that out. And when I scooped out the fluid, I found this bullet that shows It's in the palm of my hand on the left slide. I'm like, okay, where did this come from? So then we're starting to look at the guy more closely, and above the drapes that keep us from the anesthesiologist, he has a little, it looks like a little 2 millimeter, looks like a mosquito bite near his left nipple. And that actually was the entrance wound from this thing. And so it went into his chest, through his diaphragm, and into his abdomen. So then we looked more carefully, we found the really teeny little hole in his diaphragm too, but he did fine, but he gets some weird stuff. There's a lot of stuff that I've done on missions that I'd never done anyplace else before. The first mission I went on, they told me I would have to probably do some C-section and some gynecologic emergencies. So I scrubbed in on a few cases with my colleagues. Then I was in Atlanta and they showed me how to do that. So the first 2 cases, a C-section I did in a tent in Quem. And so the gal on the right side is the story with women in Sudan and many of these countries is girls and women get married off very early, like 12, 13 sometimes. And then if they're having a baby, oftentimes their pelvis isn't big enough for the baby to get out. And so the issue with that is the baby can die and they can have horrible complications for the mom if you can't get the baby out soon enough. So the gal on the right, her story was she's actually only 3 feet tall and she was too small to get her baby out. And so we did a C-section on her. She did fine. And she was thrilled. And if you look at her, she's in her finery. The baby's in her finery. And every day she would show the baby off and let us hold the baby. And it was just great. Story number 1 is the opposite. And it kind of, these 2 cases give you the example of the ups and downs of doing these missions. Is the gal on the right just brought you up to the highest highs. The other gal brought everybody down to the lowest lows because she came in 3 days of walking to get to us, couldn't deliver a baby. Her baby was dead. And she was frankly devastated. And so for her to get better, it required days for her to get better. And she and this other gal were side by side. And so one was just, you know, having the post-baby euphoria, and the other was just so depressed and so down. And I mean, all of us were just sharing our misery with her, but that's why surgeons are needed in these places. So, and then there's all sorts of other weird stuff. So you could see the 1,000 people that showed up a day. A lot of times people that showed up were coming in for things that were non-emergent, which is what our surgical mission was there for. And one of the things was a lot of tooth issues. And this gal came in every day of the month I was there asking for me to take care of infected molar. And I said, no, we don't, no. And finally, the day before I left, she showed up again. I said, I'm doing it. So then I'm not a dentist. I'm sitting down reading about the particular tooth and how do you do it and how do you not injure the nerves and that sort of thing. And we took it out and she was thrilled. But my one dental case that I've done. What do you do on these missions other than surgery stuff? You're in a remote, hard place with a bunch of other people from other places. They kind of become your family. You become their family. And I've gotten sick on missions, and these are the people that take care of me. And really, you get pretty tightly wound with each other. So the top one is a yoga mission. The bottom left is we set up a disc golf course. The guy in the next to me ran a pizza joint before he came to Doctors Without Borders, and he had no medical experience, but he came as the logistics guy. And his name was Kyle. And he was brilliant. He could do anything. And he was so good with people. The top right is me and another Anita, who's from India, who was the surgeon before me on my second trip to Sudan. And we're doing a one-day handoff where I met her patients and then she left. But we're making a sweet treat for sticky buns for people the night I got there. And then on the bottom is just pretty much at the end of each day, everybody that's doing their job would kind of sit down and talk. And it was pretty sweet. Dining options were limited. So this is takeaway. What you got there was a lot of fruits and a lot of vegetables. Food is very expensive to bring in, so you eat mostly what's available locally. My recommendation is bring snacks. Every mission I've gone, I've brought little bags of trail mix, and I usually bring enough to have one for every day I'm there. And having some sort of comfort food is amazingly helpful. The other thing is when you go to these things, because the people there, I go for a month or two. Most of the people on mission are there for 6 months to a year. And so bringing them some treats, some chocolate, some wine, some different type of spicy food. They love it. Yeah, it's great. You're a hero. One of the hardest things for me on missions are most of the missions I have gone on have been in Africa. It's super hot. So this is a slide that shows the temperature in Portland when I left. It was 50 degrees, and when I got to Agok, Sudan, it was 110, and it was miserable. The top left slide is the hut I lived in. They had power to it, so I had a fan. But otherwise, you just slept in the heat. And usually it was in the 117 range during the daytime, and it would get down to around 105, 110 at night. And it was just kind of miserable. So the picture in the middle is me nestling a Coke bottle that I put water in the morning and put it in the freezer, and it froze during the daytime. And then I would huddle with it at night and stick one under one armpit, one under another, and just. And so I'm also I'm bowing to the fan god there too. I'm just, you get pretty sweaty, and so the fan would just cool you off, but you had to stay next to it. These are the facilities. So there's an open air sink. On the right upper side is a shower that had just cold water that we pumped and you could take a shower with. Shortly after the kid that had the mamba snake bite showed up, a couple of days later, a green mamba slithered through this when one of our nurses was in there, and it freaked all of us out. Like, none of us ever took safe showering for granted again. You go in and close scrutiny to all the parts of it where you got wet. The bottom part is where you went to the bathroom, little squatty potties. These missions are kind of fish bowls. You have really restricted freedom of motion and just not much to do there. And so you want to go and try and figure out things that you can do that can keep your sanity. I'm a avid runner, a little addicted to it, and so that's kind of what I do. One of the problems with going running in these places is there have been 2 or 3 places I've been unable to leave the compound because it's too dangerous. But this one, the first mission I went on, I could run 2 miles up the road to our other satellite clinic and back. And I would get up before the sun was rising in the morning, because running in 117 degrees in the daytime sucks. And the problem was these roaming bands of dogs. And so you get rabies, we all get rabies shots before we go, immunizations. And but the dogs would come after you anyway. They didn't know that. And so dogs understand universal dog language. If you take a stick with you and you kind of shake it at them, most dogs will leave you alone. This girl on the bottom, she got attacked by the dogs just right outside our gates, and they ripped her arm open. We had to sew that up. So they did not spare anybody. This is just showing you what a true nut I am. This is a picture of me doing a marathon in my hotel room in Addis on the way to Cameroon. This was during COVID, and I was stuck there for 3 days. I could not leave my hotel room. So this is truly me, a little nutty. So basically, I think all trips are different. They're different places, different countries, different people you're working with. But all trips are really the same for me in terms that they're exhilarating and they're exhausting. They're moving and they're heartbreaking. They're all intimate. All these people around here are hugging me. They're hugging me because they like me. I'm hugging them back because I like them. They're just, if you got the thing where you like people, they want to have a relationship with you. And the fact that people share their treasures with you is just so heartwarming and keeps me going back. I think this is the thing I kind of touched on with the little picture of the Earth to start with, is that we're all on the same planet, and we are all alike in many respects, and that we all share the same dreams and aspirations for our treasures. And so kind of leaving you with that thought that all people are the same, but our situations can be world apart. And I think many conflicts don't reach the front page of the paper. And there's this stuff going on all over the world. And, if you have an opportunity either to go on a mission, if that, is your thing, or support the mission of Doctors Without Borders, that would be great. But I appreciate the opportunity to talk, and am open for questions.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mooney, for your amazing presentation. Like you said, we're now going to be accepting any questions. So if you have any questions, just raise your hand and then you can just speak them out. And if you don't hear them, then you can let me know and I can repeat them for you.
Okay.
Dr. Mooney discussing Haiti. I went to high school and was a friend of Jim Kim. Is there any legacy of can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm trying to see if I can turn my volume up a little bit. Try again.
I went to high school with Jim Kim of Partners in Health.
Okay.
Is there any legacy of Partners in Health in Haiti? And if you read the book, maybe Mountains Beyond Mountains, it was a very depressing ending in Haiti. So I'd like
I know when I was there before in around 1996, 1998, and then when we went back in 2000, they were still heavily involved. I don't know what the situation is right now because it's so tenuous across Haiti. And so who's there now, I'm unaware of, but Partners with Health had a long, long legacy in Haiti.
Thank you.
Book was moving, yeah.
Yes.
First off, thank you so much for speaking to us. I was curious about, prior to going on one of these missions, what kind of, training or briefing are you given on different, important cultural aspects of care, language training? Are you really given any briefing or training beforehand?
So I don't go away to a class someplace. Usually I'm working and up until the day I leave, but there's quite a bit of printed information that's put out before you come. It gives you, the entire kind of context of what, again, for me, it's mostly conflict. So what led to the conflict and what's going on with that. Cultural context, what's going on with the people, kind of what religious customs are, what are the things to do and not to do. When you get to the mission, you actually sit down as part of the safety briefing and are given reams more of information. And I think most people that go to places will also sit down to do things on their own. But there's quite a bit of communication about what's going on, socially, financially, contextually, geographically.
You talked about one of your missions where the primary language was French, and I was curious what problems you ran into not being able to.
Yeah, so one of the truly embarrassing things about being an American is, not all Americans, but this American, is that, so I went to high school in Germany and was there for 3 years and was fairly, I would say, moderately fluent in German by the time I left. So I have a second language. The problem is most of these missions in Africa are former French colonies. And that's why it's a language that's spoken heavily. One of the deals when you go on these international missions is, especially with MSF, which originally started in France, most of the French people that are on these missions speak a second language, either German or English. And so there are a lot of ways around it. I think when I was in Haiti, there were multiple people that spoke multiple languages that could help me out. I did not have a formal translator, and there were times when I needed to grab somebody else. Like we had a physical therapist who was from Brazil, who spoke fluent French and fluent English. And I would come grab him and I'd say, I can't get through to this person, or he can't get through to me. Can you come? And so there were workarounds about it. The funny thing about it is when I got sent to Haiti, it was during a burn emergency. They had a gas tanker that blew up and exploded and killed a lot of people, and then huge number of burn patients. And so they brought people from all over the world there to work. And they had a surgeon there already who had been sent there right at the beginning of it. And he was from US and he didn't speak any French. And he said, I'll be okay. He left because he felt so uncomfortable. For me, it's like, I thought it was kind of hilarious, and you just had to be creative to go around it. And it worked out fine for me, but it varies from person to person. Also, now on your phone, you can translate things. It's slow, but it works.
I don't know if you can see us, we can see you. But this theater is full of a lot of medical students and global health students, as far as I can see. Do you think there's a particular point that these people would be most useful for MSF? I mean, how much training, how much experience, how much maturity do you need to A, survive it, and B, thrive?
I think, good question. I think, if you were, so again, I'm talking about Doctors Without Borders is more a Peoples Without Borders thing. And like I talked about the guy that owned the pizza joint and came and worked for Doctors Without Borders. The logistics guys, what they do is they set up all the plant. They run the electricity, the water, they get the stuff, they keep the vehicles. And I actually like their job. I always covet their job because they actually get to go places. They go to the community, they're, out and about and doing different things. They meet lots of people. Whereas the surgeon, what you're doing is, I'm at the hospital every day and I never go anyplace. And so, and I set that up because I like doing that. That's good, but I do covet these guys, they're their job. So it depends on what you're doing. I mean, there are people, like I said, there are many people that go on these missions, or the majority of people on missions are not medical, they're other people. And so, pharmacists can do it too without doctors, but there's a lot of people that aren't even medical. So when I went, I think I touched on this a bit. I think the number one thing you have to go is, I meet doctors all the time, especially surgeons who they are left little finger specialists, and they don't want to take care of anything else, and they're not comfortable taking care of anything else. And then there are other people that can do anything. I think if you have an open mindset and you have that kind of mindset that says, I have this skill set and I'm willing to learn how to do things and be a little out of my comfort zone, you can do anything you want. If you decide you want to sign up for Doctors Without Borders the day you get out of your residency, it can happen. And they do have training, like they have some in Johannesburg, South Africa at a trauma hospital. They'll send you there for 3 months. And basically you're taking care of this stuff all the time and you get pretty good at it. And so there's other situations too. So I think the primary thing that would make you thrive in this situation is the ability to, one, speak that international language that isn't a language, where you work well with people because they can be pretty stressful environments. And then two is that you're just willing to think outside the box. You're a avid learner, and you like the challenge of, I mean, I've done this again and again on a mission, that I'm in a situation that's a surgical situation. You have very limited experience or supplies. Your assistants don't really know what they're doing. You have bad light. And I just kind of laugh because I'm like, who put you here? Who signed up for this? Is you. So it's your fault. But if you're able to do that, that's the key.
Where do you go for your initial briefing when you
Where do you go for your initial briefing when you arrive at a mission?
oh, when you're in the United States and you're signing up, you go to New York or somewhere to get your assignment or get orientation?
If you want to, if you're interested in signing up to work with MSF without, and I keep using MSF, so Médecins Sans Frontières, which is the French pronunciation. If you're French speaking, don't criticize my French, but MSF is what most people talk about Doctors Without Borders by, except in the US. So if you want to sign up for a mission or you're interested in it, go to their website, and it's pretty explicit about what to do. So you can apply for medical and non-medical things. And if you're accepted, they'll interview you. And if after the interview, it sounds like it's going to work out for you and work out for them, they'll bring you to New York for formal training, usually for a week or so of it. They'll put you up, they'll fly you out there, put you up. And like I said, if it's something where you need more extensive training for whatever it is, that's something that's negotiated mission by mission. If you're going someplace that doesn't have a lot of burns, they're probably not going to send you someplace for more burn care. That answer it?
Yeah.
how many on your team and how long do you stay?
So I think the smallest mission I was on was in Cameroon, and I think the total expat team was probably 10 people. And then I've been on, I think the biggest hospital I was in Agok, Sudan, and there was probably, I don't know, 50 or 60 of us. I've not been on any missions where there is more than one surgeon. And so that's why if you're the surgeon, so most of the time for surgeons in high volume projects, which are the ones I've gone on, you're working 24 hours a day for, usually for me, I'm there for 2 months. And it can be literally like just crazy all night long. A lot of mass casualty events, like a bus rolls over or a shooting episode where 30 people get shot. And it's just, usually by the time I come home, you can ask my wife, I'm not a big guy to start with, but I can lose 15 or 20 pounds on a mission. I don't eat much, it's hot, I'm working all the time, it's exhausting. So surgeons and anesthesiologists, there are certain other people can go on shorter missions like what I've done. If you're like a pharmacist or you're a nurse or different, like a primary care doctor, most of those people are going on missions for 6 months to a year. If you're going on a mission 6 months to a year, usually the way their schedule works is they work Monday through Friday. They have the weekends off. They have very regular hours during the daytime. They also get sabbaticals. When I was in Sri Lanka, the people going on their sabbaticals went to Maldives, which was the closest place. And they're sending us text message pictures of Maldives, drinking a, whatever, drink by the pool. But it was close and cheap to go from there. But that's kind of the deal. So it just depends on what you're doing.
Michael, thank you so much. It's just such an excellent talk today. You covered so much the importance of MSF, of why you do the work that you do. You've shown us very practically what you do on the ground. And part of what you shared, the specific areas that you went to and some of the environmental concerns, let's call it. I'm wondering if you know more about the range of countries that MSF sends its folks. Are there countries where perhaps there are some folks, young people particularly, who are very interested in MSF, but the idea of going to a conflict zone might be kind of scary? Are these the only types of countries that MSF sends folks to, or are there others?
No, so I could go back to the previous list, but I think so there's several things. Like in a conflict zone, there are many conflict zones that they won't send Americans because we are persona non grata in many countries, and if you have an American there, it makes it more dangerous for everybody in the mission. So there are places that I've not been sent for those reasons. The other thing is, if they're offering to send you to a conflict zone, you always have the option of saying no. I don't want to go there. I mean, it's not like if they assign you, you go. It's optional. And so I think MSF, there's a lot going on in South America. Primarily, I'm not a Spanish speaker, and it's not so much conflict there. It's more endemic disease or TB or HIV or malaria or these sorts of projects. Oftentimes it's nutritional things. And some of these are in areas that have no conflict at all. And so, yeah, there's lots of opportunities not to go to conflict areas.
Thank you.
I went to, I did the one that was non-conflict for me. I went to Nigeria and a place called Bamenda. And the biggest issue in Bamenda was there was just lack of access for a really big city with a lot of trauma, primarily motor vehicle trauma, and people couldn't afford the care. And so we were there for that. And so it was a lot of trauma, and there was like typical city, there was gunshots and knife wounds and that stuff coming in too. But the majority of it, like a typical case there was, they had these really small roads and people were becoming more and more wealthy, and they had cars that would drive fast down these roads. They didn't pay any attention to the people that were walking on the roads. And so I saw like 3 or 4 kids this way. The kids would try and press against the buildings out of the way of the cars. And the only thing that was sticking out was their feet, and the cars would run over their feet, and they had no shoes, and it would completely rip all the skin off the top of their feet, which is nasty one, but it's that sort of stuff, not conflict.
What about situation of a retired physician, maybe a couple of years out, no longer has active licensure with federal or state level? Would that be a barrier to serving in your organization out of country?
Most of the countries that we go to want evidence of active licensure. Yeah, for you to get approval to go there. Now, if you want to go on a mission and you don't necessarily, like if I was a surgeon and I didn't have any of my stuff up to date anymore, none of that, and I wanted to go and work whatever, I wanted to be the logistics guy. In fact, one of the people doing the logistics thing that's doing it right now is in her 80s. And there's all sorts of things to do other than provide direct medical care. So it's worth at least contacting them and telling them what your skill set is. There may be roles for people that are not licensed to help in some way, but they do want physicians to be licensed.
Okay, those are all of our questions. Thank you so much, Dr. Mooney, for your talk. We really appreciated it. If any of you enjoyed the program today, the refreshments provided, or the opportunity to connect around important international topics with in-person and virtual experts, please consider financially supporting our mission to help Iowans better understand international issues and foster global engagement. Thank you so much to the members of our community for their enduring support. Our next program and last of this spring semester is an important and timely topic. It features a panel of 5 Iowans speaking on obstacles to peace, stories about Palestine. Join us from 6 to 7:30 on Friday, the 3rd of May at Iowa City's Public Library. In this program, Palestinian and Jewish Iowans share their personal stories and experiences of identity, oppression, and solidarity, and also share hope from inside of Palestine and the United States. Thank you again for joining us today. Sign up for a monthly newsletter if you're interested in these programs, and also consider following us on social media. With that, we are adjourned. Thank you so much.
Thanks for coming, everybody.
Thank you.
Michael, thank you so much. That was just amazing.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah. Take care.
Social media or whatever.
Absolutely, yes. Absolutely, yeah. Okay, do you want me to close this?